as well as a attractive lifestyle and work environment where people can actually improve the quality of their life, and of course working and living in the next generation smart district. So what does next generation smart district means? It is actually envisioned as a technology playground where we hope that it will be a living lab so that we can have plug and play test bedding of IoT devices and digital services. We will provide data at the district level for academia as well as commercial R&D to develop your product and your solutions. It will be 5G ready that allows autonomous vehicles, drones, and low latency mobile gaming to happen. We will also have urban logistics, and that I will share with you a little bit more later, as well as a smart district with smart building management system, operations, as well as a platform to share data. Now, we hope that this next generation smart district will basically enhance economic competitiveness and sustainability, as well as bring added convenience and security, not only to the tenants, but also to the visitors of Punggol Digital District to improve the quality of life. Here we can test bed, of course, many innovative technologies such as smart lighting, smart grid, wayfinding, biometric access, video analytics, smart parking, just to name a few. Specifically, for example, we hope to test bed urban logistics, where we do have a centralized logistics hub where vehicles will go, and we will have robots that will deliver goods to the different parts of the estate using last mile delivery. Now, previously, when we built any physical infrastructure, we will build them first and then think about what digital infrastructure we need. And some of these challenges, of course, will be difficulties in how we integrate them later on. And therefore, today, when we are building Punggol Digital District, we hope to develop both the physical as well as the digital infrastructure so that we can actually connect all the different systems, products, services, and apps in a physical environment. And of course, if this is successful, we will deploy them in our other estates, as well as hopefully in the whole of Singapore. Now, when we talk about a smart district, we must not only forget the operations part, but also the whole value chain of development, all the way from planning to design to construction to operations and maintenance of the facilities, and even marketing and lease management, and the lifestyle that we want to create for the people who work, live, and play there. And so to us, smart district is actually the whole value chain that looks at everything from planning to lifestyle. And the vision of the future is really to have a central command and control center where we can visualize exactly what's happening on the ground. We can do sense making, we can do planning, we can provide information, we can do collaboration, we can provide operations and services to the people who actually work, live, and play there. So examples, we will have things like real-time drone delivery. We will control the system so that we have condition monitoring as well as predictive analysis. We will have artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sure that all our facilities are actually running in tip-top conditions. Some of the challenges that we face, of course, is to integrate the various data, of course, are also unstructured, so we want to make them to be more structured data. And today, when the systems are separate, they do not talk to each other. So it's very difficult to do sense making. And we hope that having a platform will be able to help in sense making. And of course, today you do have proprietary systems out there, and very difficult to integrate and costly to upgrade. So what's our solution to all this? Our solution essentially is to develop an open digital platform, a platform which is the system of systems that allows various vertical systems to be integrated in a single platform through an open standard multi-protocol middleware and many APIs, and have a data lake where the data of one system can actually be used by another system. And in that case, that will help to make Punggol and Punggol Digital District a lot smarter. And of course, with smartness, you can do a lot more things to be able to develop applications, be able to develop systems, as well as to be able to have quality of life. So what exactly is an ODP, or Open Digital Platform? As I have mentioned, it is actually a system of systems where we want to integrate various systems together in a 3D visualization dashboard that is geospatial enabled. A system of one can talk to another system. And if we can do that, we can actually help to reduce costs, not only for business costs, also reduce energy costs and water costs. In addition to that, we also hope to build a digital twin, which is a representation of the real world in a digital environment. And it is in this digital environment that we can actually have to build products and services that we can test bed and we can run it. And if it works, we can bring it over to the real world environment. Here's a few screenshots of what we have done so far. We can do video analytics for security and utilization tracking. For example, how many people go to the mall. We also can integrate the system and operate the system remotely, both monitoring, analysis, optimization, as well as control functions. So essentially, it's a C3 system. It's a command, control, and communication system that will help us to achieve environmental sustainability, reduction in energy consumption, water consumption, and also help to reduce manpower for facilities management. It does have a GIS capability that helps to integrate the various IoT systems, as well as be able to integrate various systems, for example, robotic systems that can help deliver goods within the building or within the estates. And of course, some of these benefits I've highlighted here, but the key thing is really to have open collaboration and how we optimize the resources. And especially this is the Norway-Singapore Science Week. We are very happy to see how we can actually work with different Norwegian and Singapore companies to see how we can integrate some of these things within the Open Digital Platform. And with that, I just want to say thank you very much and hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for your presentation. Next, may I invite Kristoffer from Norway to share your presentation?
Yeah, hi everyone. Just a minute. I believe now you can see my presentation.
Yeah, it's up and running. Just go on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, first of all, thank you for the invitation to talk about what's happening in Northern Norway. I'm Kristoffer Seivåg, and I'm an urban planner, and I'm also a project manager of a huge development area that will develop further urban development of Bodø in the future. And I will briefly get you an introduction to urban development in Bodø, and I will focus mainly on transportation mobility and our goals and ambitions for this. Okay, here you can see our position in the Northern Norway. We are just above the Arctic Circle in the land of the midnight sun. We are located just south of Lofoten and Tromsø, as you can see here. And here's the border of the municipality. So it's situated on the coast, as you can see, and the Bodø is a peninsula. So we have, as you can see in this map, we have a little bit of scars of land to use. So I will get back to that and see how tell you about how we will develop our future urban areas. First of all, Bodø has a population of 52,000 inhabitants, and are one of the few towns in Northern Norway that has growth. In our municipality, we focus a lot on urban development and our cultural life. In the recent years, we had some large-scale transformations of the city center. which got us some awards, as you can see here, as the most attractive city in Norway in 2016 and the best city center in 2018. We are also pointed out to be the European Capital Culture in 2024, so that's also very exciting. Here you can see the urban areas of Bodø in yellow. Here we have the inner city, and we also can see that we have a train station and a harbor. We also have a university 20 kilometers east from the inner city. We also have nearby agriculture land, and also, as you can see with this green line, it's a recreational area which is very close to the urban areas. The thing is, we also have a civil airport just very close to the city center, as you can see here. And we also have a very large Air Force base, a NATO air base that was established here in 1952. So we actually the whole city is in an airport. So we are very used to the airport noise. In 2012, we had a situation that the Norwegian Parliament wanted to relocate the Air Force Base farther south from Bodø, so there will be no more Air Force activity in Bodø from 2022. And we also has the need for a new runway, because the runway that was built in 1952 have seen better days. So we also need to establish a new runway in Bodø. And the idea is to actually, when you have this situation, to move the whole airport, as we need the new runway, and also the NATO airbus, as I said, will be closed down. So if you move the airport a couple of kilometers to the southwestern point of our peninsula, we will free up some area of 300 hectares for future urban development. And we also have a better situation for the airport noise. So this is a good idea, and it's through our politicians. Also nationally, this is now happening. As you can see here, if we focus our urban growth in the future on into this area in the southwest here, we will prevent the urban sprawl, as has been the case for many decades, and of course also been closer to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So for the future, now we'll focus the growth of the urban development into this area, and also densification of the existing urban areas. So we say that we plan our new areas as inward instead of outwards, as you can see here. The spatial planning of the new airport and new urban area are ongoing. The new airport will start its building, I think, in a year or so. And we also now, as a project manager of the municipal master plan of the new urban area of about 300 hectares. It's a plan that will highlight the main structure can develop this area and also the order of development of the area. So this is could be an important part for Bodø for many decades. And we are having a goals to establish around 15,000 housings and 20,000 workplaces in this area. We started a planning process by asking our inhabitants in Bodø and the businesses how the new urban area should be like. And surprisingly enough, through these activities, we found out that people are mainly interested in what's happening between the buildings and not inside them. So that means people are very interested in the recreational areas, green areas, parks, and etc. But also transportation, and safer transportation, and how to get from A to B in the safest way. So, and also the public transport as well. So that's very interesting. So through those feedbacks and through our politicians, we have highlighted some high ambitions and goals for our urban development. We say that we will every new area will be planned as a zero emission neighborhoods, and so we work now how to develop and how to plan them for the future. So we think that the new urban area, maybe we are able to start building it by 2027 maybe, so we need to work fast. Circular economy is also important for us, and as an example, we have ambitions to reuse all the masses in the area. Some masses are contaminated, but we think we can reuse as much as we can, and also clean and sort them as well. So we prevent much transportation of the masses and deposit it elsewhere. So that's important for us. We also look into how different energy sources can be established in a system as for zero-emission neighborhoods. Here you can see an example of how the new area could look like. So it's really important that we connect the new urban areas as the city grows with existing areas. First of all, to the west and to the left here, we try to investigate how we can connect the new airport with a future harbor, and also maybe with a new railway going to this area as well. And we also have a new road system coming to this. So we have a huge opportunity to connect all different types of transportation in one hub, as we say. So for instance, you can maybe you can have all the fish from the agriculture taken to this harbor and through airplanes to the rest of the world pretty fast. As you also can see here, we have different neighborhoods, and in Norway we have a national goal that we have zero growth in private transportation by private cars. So that means we need to plan our areas in a whole different way than we had done earlier when the car was in focus. So as you can see here in the pyramid to the left, to the right, I mean, you can see the priority we have to plan for. So that means we have to better facilitate and make bicycle and public transport and walking much more attractive in the future. That means maybe we have maybe need to plan our urban areas in a whole different way. So this, as you can see here, it's an example where we have no car roads inside the urban areas. It's all areas for car driving are outside the neighborhoods here, and inside those neighborhoods there are only facilities for walking and bicycling and public transport as well. So that's also very important because if you can plan this area all from scratch, it's a huge opportunity to plan the urban areas as we think is the best. But of course we have in Norway, of course, the maybe all seasons in one day, and we have wind, we have snow, and different issues to that. So we really need to work hard to make those transportation methods more attractive. So so it's all about preventing the use of the private car. So maybe we should have more restrictions on the car parking, and make a different or harder way for the private car to get to their final destination. So that's how we work on this. This leads us to a new concept that we will be testing. We already have a lot of car share and bike share solutions in Bodø, but you have this concept of mobility hubs. So it's a physical hub in the neighborhoods that have all the car and bike share solutions. It can also have the main parking area for the private cars, and also, of course, for close to the public transport as well, and maybe also have pick-up points for goods and packages. So the whole idea is to prevent the use of the private car, as you can just walk to your mobility hub and take all of the different greener transportations as you need. So to the left here, you can see a concept where you have a public transport system that has fewer stops but higher frequency, and that you can use your micromobility to get to your final destinations. We also believe that if you have quarters, if you plan quarters with more mix of the land use, and you have the land use diversity, it will be, you not need much for the private car, so you don't need to transport yourself at the long distances. So for instance, if you have in a quarter, or maybe inside a building, if you have your job, your house, kindergarten, cafes, or a grocery store. You just need to walk to those daily activities. So that means you don't need to use your car. So to the right here, we can see also this concept. We have just a car-free quarter. So you have to drive your car just outside, and you have 2 mobility hubs. In this area, you have also different types of housings, because that's also important to have different types of housings for different types of families. But you also have offices, and you also have open meeting places, and also areas for urban agriculture as well. So we believe that if you have more land use diversity, the need for transportation is less, and you have safer transportations inside, and also give more urban life to the areas as well. So instead of having a office building in a business district that will be have its activity just for about the working hours, you have more daily life if you have also housings and cafes and different activities and land use inside those buildings. On a more technical view of it, we have, through a research project we have for realization of zero-emission neighborhoods, we have developed what we call spatial indicators. As you can see here, it's much about the closeness to different things: a city center, closeness to public transport, to schools, but also people density, land use diversity, as I mentioned, car parking restrictions, street connectivity, but also closeness and the quality of the open areas. So it's more or less a GIS analysis, but it's very interesting to test different planned area and how well they perform before you take them into action and develop them. I think I just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristoffer, for your very interesting presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe we will spend the next 15 minutes. If you have any questions that you would like to ask David or Kristoffer on their respective presentations, I think we can see a lot of parallels between the development of these 2 estates, both in Singapore and in Norway. Multifunctional users of land, striving towards a sustainable urban development with work, live, and play all coming together. I think there's a lot of interesting points that each can learn from one another. Maybe I can start off with a question to David from the floor. David, one of our audience has asked you that with so much sensors, patterns, and facial recognitions and data analytics, how would we address challenges around privacy and data protection issues for Punggol Digital District?
Well, thanks, Lydia. That's a very common question that a lot of people will ask. Yeah. So we will comply with our PDPA, which is the Personal Data Protection Act, ensure that no personal information and data will actually be shown to anybody, and neither will the system contain such personal and information. The only data that we will keep is really at the point of access control. So when you want to go into the building, we will keep the data. But other than that, that's the only data that we will keep. So most of our cameras, for example, we are even looking at, say, for example, infrared cameras for counting people. So we can count the number of people, but we actually don't know who that person is. So that's the kind of thing that we are looking into. Now, of course, the system itself will be well protected by cybersecurity measures, not only at the system level, but also at the device level, so that we will not have any cybersecurity issues.
Thank you very much, David. Do you feel that as PDD advances to more complex level, does the regulations for data security need to evolve to cope with such added complexity? For instance, the ODP gets more systems of system with more plug and play coming in integrated together.
Well, the answer is yes, right? Because in the past, you have individual systems which are actually standalone. But individual systems, you can only hack the system when it is, when you enter into the system. But a platform like the ODP is actually a system of systems. So if you can hack into the platform, you can actually by right enter into the various systems. That is why cybersecurity is very, very important for this open digital platform. And today we are looking at a lot of the cybersecurity measure. And as I mentioned, it's not only at the system level, it's not only at the data level, but it's also at the device level.
Interesting, thank you. And for Kristoffer, does anybody from the floor has any questions for Kristoffer? Okay, sorry, David, there's another question for you from the floor. Someone has asked, does COVID-19 pandemic has forced some changes to your planning for PDD developments in terms of distancing, air filtration, tracking, or any other impact that is affecting your development?
So, well, as a smart district or smart buildings, we actually try to minimize contact, for example. So you actually have facial recognition for access control. The access control system is actually linked to your lift system, so you actually don't even have to press the lift button to get to the respective floors. We are also looking at the automated doors so that you don't actually have to touch the handle of the door to open the door. So that's one area that the design actually takes care of this issue about COVID-19, where you have to touch things. Secondly, of course, is in the area of filtration, for example. We do have put in place HEPA filters at our aircon system. Control the amount of fresh air that comes into the building. If we know what is the CO2 level, or even if there's any poor indoor quality in the building. Third is that when we design the whole Punggol Digital District, we are seeing how we can have a lot more naturally ventilated areas. For example, our lobbies are actually naturally ventilated. Our toilets are also naturally ventilated. So with natural ventilation, I think the possibility of virus transmission is lowered. So we hope that incorporating some of these things in the future of our building design will help to maybe minimize, right? I don't think we can eliminate 100%, but I think we can help minimize the transmission of any disease, whether it's COVID-19 or even disease X in the future.
Yeah, thank you. I think with COVID, it has emphasized the health and wellness aspect of our upcoming infrastructure. And I certainly wish that maybe PDD in next generation infrastructure will be well known for being the most healthy and most, promoting wellness of its occupants. And then maybe at that point, I will be very happy to propose to my management to work in PDD instead of our current old building. Yeah. So for Kristoffer, may I ask you a few questions? It was very interesting to learn about Bodø development. And I noticed that there is also a university in that whole cluster over there. In the concept of encouraging a healthy ecosystem and exchange of ideas between academia, residents, and the business sector, what plans do you have to incorporate that university into your development plans?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We got that all the time. Why don't you just move your university into the new city area? Because as we all know, the university will give a lot of activity and more life into the urban areas with the students and all the workplaces as well. But for us, that's. But I think it's important to think that some elements from the university and in cooperation with the university will be important to develop the new urban areas. So, but yeah, it's still, as I say, only 20 kilometers east from the inner city. So it's we will work how to connect it better through transportations, maybe.
Indeed. And then there was a question to both you and David, and how would you incorporate researchers in the development of your districts? is related to my question to you as well.
Well, maybe I start, right? When we developed Punggol Digital District, we actually developed it jointly with the Singapore Institute of Technology, which is a 12,000 strong university. It's our 5th university in Singapore with about 500 faculty members. When we designed the business park, we actually integrate the university together with the business park. So some of the students will actually be studying or doing research in our facilities, and some of the businesses will actually be doing maybe product development, commercialization of their solutions within the university campuses. So with that integration, we actually have a lot of integration. We also do share some of our facilities and our equipment. For example, we do have a district cooling system that is actually integrated. Both plants are integrated. And we are actually even offering our district cooling plant for the students to manage, because the Singapore Institute of Technology actually teaches a course on facilities management, for example. So really, when the students learn about, say, facilities management, they can actually practice facilities management operations. And that we sort of provide our infrastructure to support the students. So with that, we think that there is going to be quite a lot of collaboration. The other thing that we are also providing is really data, right? Data from the operations for building, data on our systems, and we provide these data in a digital twin. And researchers can use the data, develop their apps, develop their solutions, test it out in the digital twin, and if it works, can then be deployed in a real-life environment. So that's the kind of collaboration we hope. So we truly believe in university and business and community collaboration in this way.
Thank you very much, David. I think one very interesting point that we can learn from Norway is that they also use the open spaces between the residential and the academia as the common corridor where collaboration can happen. As Kristoffer just now mentioned, through the survey with the inhabitants, they interviewed the inhabitants in Bodø. What do they want to know? They want to know what happens in between the buildings. So I guess that was a very interesting point, interesting takeaway that I learned from Kristoffer. So for Kristoffer, what do you feel about, what's your response to this question about incorporating researchers in your development?
Well, yeah, as we have the situation in Bodø with moving the airport and had the chance to develop this new urban area close to the existing urban areas, we are a pilot for many research programs and projects. So, for instance, we have one project with NTNU and SINTEF about zero-emission neighborhoods. So through that, we are developing and find out how we can plan zero-emission neighborhoods. We also work with others on transportation methods and how we can incorporate more of the greener transportation methods, different types of public transport, driverless transportation, and yeah, in actually very many different levels. Also for engaging engaging the inhabitants of Bodø. We also try to develop different solutions how they can interact with us directly with the municipality and be a part of the urban development.
I would also like to pose the question to both of you, because you are both aware that you're developing a kind of new area. You have some clear goals related to that you want to have a sustainable development. And there is a kind of conflict between some of the issues, because you know that you will have quite a lot of challenges related to transporting goods into these areas. Whatever you do, like in Bodø, you have the location of the airport, the harbor, the train station, everything requires transport of, and transport of goods generally requires space. And that comes in conflict with your aim of having availability for pedestrians, bikers, etc. I know from working with Singapore that you already are having quite extensive plans on how you utilize the underground to both for goods transport, goods storage, etc. I was living in Bodø for 3.5 years working as a geotechnical engineer. I know that working underground is quite familiar because it has been a military base. I was thinking, do you incorporate the use of underground into your thinking of how you can kind of facilitate transport of goods, transport of people, and interaction between different areas? Goes to both of you.
Sure. Well, Arnstein, maybe I'll just highlight a few things. We do have basement car parking as well as basement loading and unloading bays for all the goods. So we reserve the so-called the first story or the ground floor for people, for cycling, for walking, as well as public transport. So that's what we do. Secondly is that we do have this concept about off-site consolidation logistics. This is a concept where instead of, for example, many trucks serving different tenants in the building, we work with, say, one or two logistics player to consolidate the delivery to a few deliveries per day, for example. That could be one. Two, we do have a centralized loading and loading bay where people can deliver their goods to the district, and thereafter we have last mile delivery by robots, for example, or even manually by pushing trolleys, for example. So we do have a few of these systems in place, and with a view to reduce the number of traffic, with a view to help people to take more public transport, to do more walking and cycling.
Okay, for Bodø, it's interesting, as you mentioned, the underground transportation. We are investigating the possibilities that maybe a future railway and also the main road system going to the western part through the urban areas can be underground, because that will make a less barrier for crossing it. So that's something we're looking into. But in Bodø, we have also problems that we have situated very close to the sea level, so it could be extremely costly to have an underground system in Bodø. But we will look into how we can at least make a lesser barrier for the future bigger transportation system. So yeah.
Thank you very much, David and Kristoffer, for your answers. David, there's another question from you from Marta, engineering consultancy company. They would like to ask you whether limiting car use is a priority in Singapore, and if so, how do you plan to do it? I guess you have covered a little bit of that. Maybe you would like to elaborate.
Well, in Singapore, as you know, we are not a very big country, and we are also a city-state. And we do have a lot of cars in Singapore. So the plan is really to increase what we call a public transport mode share from currently, which is about, I think, close to about 60% to hopefully 75 or even 85%. So that's the first plan that we hope to do. And with that, we are actually putting in a lot of what we call our MRT system, which is actually subway throughout the whole island. And the construction of subways or MRT system is actually still ongoing today. Secondly is that, of course, in terms of the usage of cars, we are also hoping to move towards a more low carbon transport. We have actually, in Singapore, we have actually announced that come 2040, all our vehicles will be converted into electric vehicles. So we have to say goodbye to our internal combustion engine vehicles, and we are moving towards electrification of our, at least for the for private cars, right? So that's the plan that we are hoping to do.
Thank you very much, David. Okay, maybe I have a final question to Kristoffer. Someone I'd like to ask you, where do you see the main challenges and problem statements for developing a low energy, low emission district? And do you foresee you have the technology available, and where should the technology development be focused?
Right. Yeah. I think maybe we have much of the technology today. We have zero emission buildings, so it's so we are getting there. I think it's more about to have the zero emission neighborhoods connect different buildings in a system. So that's a kind of new thinking. So that is of course a challenge, but still I think we have the technology. Also, an issue here is that we also need developers to build in that kind of quality of the areas. So we need to also have business models for how so that developers can build in that with that technology in this area. So so that's an important thing to work on as well, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David and Kristoffer, for your answers. And I hope with your presentation and your answers to the questions, it will inspire more thinking from the audience who are coming from the academia and the business sector, so that to encourage more collaborations. If you have further questions, please feel free to write into our presenters or to me. I can help to facilitate further conversations. So with this, may I pass the floor now to the next presenter, who is Arnstein. Can I pass the floor to you, please?
Yeah, please. Thanks a lot to both of you. The way we have shared this is a way that we started out with some district development plans in Singapore and in Bodø, to kind of set the framework. And then what you probably have heard already is that a lot of what we are thinking about developing smart cities is about use of data. Data is the key for how we can manage, how we can organize, how we can optimize the solutions. And our thinking was then that based on this, we would like to go into and look about how we can possibly use data as some examples to become more smart. Special focus in this case related to mobility and transport, but the question is generally how can we use data, how can we share data to reach the goals. And then I would like to invite Severin, who is a researcher at SINTEF, to give a presentation related to data-driven innovation across sectors. How can you use data across the sector? So please, Severin.
Thank you very much, and a very warm hello from beautiful Norway here to Singapore and everybody else in the world. A long time ago, in the old days, the Industrial Revolution caused rapid urban growth, which came with an entire host of huge environmental and social problems. The old solution back then were centralized networks, static systems separated by sector to provide us with clean water, safe food, to take care of waste removal, and to cover our energy and transportation needs. But today, these old solutions are obsolete, as we're faced with new global and highly complex problems. Global warming is looming over us all, challenging our energy, water, and food. Democracy is being challenged, and political institutions seem largely to be in a deadlock. A global pandemic is raging, and we seem to struggle to contain it, with a fragile global system unfit for a new era. So it's fair to say that the future seems very uncertain. On one hand, it holds great promise, fantastic world. But on the other, it also seems to harbor visions of a very dystopian and dysfunctional hell. And we seem to be missing aim and direction. But as MIT professor and serial entrepreneur Alex Pentland says, we have the means to do better now. We've got the right tools, we've got the Internet of Things, we've got AI, we've got biotechnology, robotics, and blockchain, but we don't yet fully know how to use them. One thing is certain, however. We need to radically rethink our approach. New, big, and highly interconnected problems demand new, big, and highly interconnected solutions. They require us to find and establish new ways of collaboration and co-creation. On one hand, we need to make sure that the right ideas and information come forth and that they are exchanged and shared, because the better the flow of ideas and data, the larger the payoffs. On the other hand, we also need the vision and the means to act on the best ideas. Today's new and big problems also require us to think in holistic concepts. If we want to optimize the whole, we can't keep trying to optimize small bits of it in isolation. The world has simply gotten much too complex to only be thinking inside our own little boxes. So we need to consider cities as dynamic systems, which are networked, self-regulating, and driven by needs and preferences of citizens, and not by access and distributions. Digital data plays a central role to, on one hand, understand and monitor what's going on, and on the other hand, to optimally match responses to the demands at any given time. I myself am a data scientist, and I can sense the sheer potential of this approach in my everyday work, the potential to make things truly better and truly smarter. I work for SINTEF in Norway here, which is one of Europe's largest independent research organizations. Our focus is applied research, technology, and innovation. Our over 1,500 researchers with backgrounds in engineering, natural sciences, health, and social sciences allow us to combine digital expertise with domain expertise. And because of this, SINTEF is very well suited to create technology for a better society. And personally, I'd like to go even beyond that. I firmly believe that we have a duty to help the world move ahead and tackle the new and big issues. SINTEF's vision is one with responsive cities, which are greener, more mobile, safer, more social, and more inclusive, which are offering new and more effective and smarter city services and new, greener, and meaningful jobs. We see a future with an explosion of digital innovation and an explosion of new and smart ideas. We also see entirely new networked business models. And we see a future where information and decisions are optimally provided and communicated so that it is easier for everyone to contribute and so that democracy and political institutions are strengthened. We believe in a fact-based, scientific, and data-driven approach. Science has always been a guide in uncertain times, shining a light into the dark, showing us possible paths and highlighting potential dangers. We also strongly believe that sharing data and ideas leads to optimal outcomes. And we believe in the intersection between innovation, value creation, and new business models. We firmly believe that the best way to make our cities smarter is through data-driven innovation across sectors. And if you give me 8 minutes of your time, I will try to whet your appetite just a little bit for the ensuing discussion by giving you a few examples. How can we make cities greener and more mobile by sharing data across sectors? Consider the question of where to place charging opportunities for electric vehicles. Imagine that we can do that optimally based on traffic data and patterns, data on where energy is needed and based on where and when the energy is produced and stored. This also means that we ideally consider energy production, storage, and use holistically. We can better understand what's going on in our buildings based on their usage patterns and energy demands. We can understand when and how energy is needed and when it is not. And we can then optimally move energy between buildings and neighborhoods. Or what if we could suggest optimal times and routes for delivery and commuting traffic separately by understanding and modeling traffic patterns in real time? How can we make cities safer and healthier by sharing data across sectors? Remember my first example about where to place charging stations for electric cars? Well, we have the exact same problem when deciding where to place response units. Let's take health services as an example. Understanding and anticipating behavioral patterns from traffic data, or for example, data on building usage, means that we can optimally place units throughout the city and help save lives. We can generally create a much better response to emergencies if we understand where people likely are and what they're likely doing at any given time. It's also easy to imagine real-time control of contagious diseases from monitoring behavior and health data. It turns out that people change their behavior when they become ill in reliable and predictable ways that can be sensed with, for example, mobile phones. So this means that we can provide people with real-time updated maps of where they can safely go during a pandemic and which neighborhoods they should avoid. We could potentially even get our fingers directly on the pulse of the economy during critical events such as COVID-19, because patterns in mobility and energy use could help us highlight who is struggling and where. We can also easily imagine holistic what-if scenarios for resilience planning. Again, let's consider COVID-19 as an example. Understanding mobility and energy patterns together with building usage data can help us use lockdowns, masks, and quarantines optimally and monitor their effect. And lastly, how can we make cities more inclusive by sharing data across sectors? Leveraging health and mobility data together with building usage data can help us anticipate health issues. And this can be especially beneficial for issues that suffer from chronic patient underreporting, such as is the case with mental health issues or for age-related problems. And here's one last cool example. We can use behavior data to structure public transportation so that we improve exploration throughout the city. Exploration here basically means that people are exposed to new ideas and experiences by traveling outside their everyday paths, for example, to different parts of their city. Now, why would we want a city with improved exploration? Because it turns out that it increases productivity and creative output, which is good for everybody. So I know what you're probably thinking right now. Okay, so we just share a ton of data and reach worldwide utopia by 2021. Doesn't that just sound a bit too good to be true? Well, yes, because it is. The truth is that we are just at the beginning of our journey when it comes to data-driven innovation across sectors. We're still in the infant stages, trying to survey market needs and trying to match them with the digital expertise and the domain expertise needed. I know that quite a bit has been done internationally, and people continue to have great ideas for how to leverage data to boost innovation and to make cities truly smarter. This is certainly the case both for Norway as well as Singapore. However, we're still lacking a lot of the central pieces of the puzzle. We need a new deal on data to share data safely and efficiently. We also need to help people understand the value of their own data. And we need to help businesses and cities understand what data they need and what they can do with the data they already have. We especially need to demonstrate value in good cases to make businesses willing to share their data. We also certainly need to keep an eye on cybersecurity. For example, once you have powerful models and data, these can themselves quickly become critical infrastructure and require careful protection. And lastly, it needs to be even easier to obtain funding for cross-sectorial research. Yet I feel hopeful. Yes, these are very complex topics and big challenges, but we have the means to do better now. We must learn from each other across sectors, across cities, and across countries. We must get inspired by new solutions and new ideas. This is a chance for the unknown to prepare for the unknown, to fully take advantage of the possibilities and to stay clear of the risks. And it's a chance to create a better and smarter future through data-driven innovation across sectors. I hope that you too feel hopeful now. And I hope you feel curious and maybe even a little bit inspired. And here's what I would like you to do now. I would like you to join the discussion afterwards, to engage and to share your ideas. And do contact me so we can learn from each other and so we can explore possibilities for collaboration, how to use data-driven innovation across sectors.
Thank you, David. Severin, that was really amazing to note your thoughts about how we can use the data. I have to say that I have some concerns though, after seeing how my data on ordering spare parts for my own old cars are used and spread as information throughout the world. So there are some disadvantages, obviously, that we have to tackle. But I think we go directly to the next presentation, which is Hongchao Fan, which is going to talk to us about how you can use publicly available data and use it to enhance urban mobility. So please, Hongchao, can you just go on, and then we open for the discussion and questions afterwards. Okay, Hongchao.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Hongchao Fan. So it's my honor to give this presentation on the Norway-Singapore Science Week 2020. So my presentation is about exploring urban mobility from the crowdsourcing geoinformation data. So this is content of my presentation. At first, I will introduce what is the crowdsourcing geoinformation data, and then I will explain the connection to the urban mobility. After that, I will give some research work, present some research work at NTNU in this domain. And finally, I will give a short discussion and conclusion. So I'm not going to repeat the definition. So I would like to give an example. So you probably have already post a message or upload a photo on Twitter. So with geolocations, this is very important. So then this is a piece of crowdsourcing geoinformation data. And another type of data is the OpenStreetMap data, where millions of volunteers that create maps by digitalizing satellite images. So people can also share street images and videos with geolocations. So this is all the crowdsourcing geoinformation data. A lot of people have the experience of sharing information on social media platform, and with locations, and if you share the information, so the social media records the time automatically. So with locations and times, so we know that where and when people are in the city. And so if we look at the content, we then can know why people are there, what are they doing in the city, and with whom they are in the city. So if we have millions of this data, so we can then detect the human activity, and we can then know the human flow in the cities. So this is very obvious that we have a direct connection of crowdsourcing geoinformation data to the urban mobility. So in the next, I will give you some example research about our achievements at NTNU. The first one is to discover the impact of human activity on urban mobility. This is a joint work with my former colleagues in Heidelberg University in Germany. So we collected all the Twitter dates in the year of 2015 for the Canadian city, Toronto, and after filtering the tweets, we got about 3.7 million of tweets with geolocations, which are from 18,000 users. At first, we conducted the spatial clustering for these tweets, and then we extract the semantic text by using machine learning from this data, and we find actually about 19 semantic texts which connected to human activity. After that, we connect the clusters. If the cluster has same semantic text and happens at similar time, and in this way, the human activity networks are established. Here on the upper left figure, you see the human activity network in Toronto. So every circle represents a cluster of activity with certain semantic text at a certain time. So for example, people are buying coffee at 9 o'clock in a coffee shop close to a railway station. So the circles are connected to each other if they have similar, if they have same semantic information and at a certain time. So you see, and the size of the circle increase if they are connected to many clusters. And the lines, the connected lines are represented with colors with red for long distance and yellow for short distance. So these figures actually tells us that Toronto is a well-structured city with good facilities. So as you can see that the clusters, even in different corners of the city, are connected to each other. It means that people are distributed to the corners of the city, but they share the similar lifestyle. So they have similar human activities. So we also overlap this human activity network with local traffic data, and to find out the reasons of the traffic congestions. So our research shows that the sport, music, and food have much impact on the urban mobility in the rush hour in the afternoon. Okay, the second topic is to detect the hotspot in urban area. This is quite straightforward. So we use almost 1 million photos from the Flickr and to have this intensity map, which represents the local city centers in the Singapore city. So if we use the mapillary images, which are 330,000 photos in the recent 5 years, we got the similar results. So the third topic is explore where and how people observe our city from 2D and 3D perspective of view. We actually want to find out which part of the facade of a building are mostly photographed. Therefore, we want to reconstruct the buildings in 3D. Actually, we reconstruct our city in 3D by using the crowdsourcing images. Here you can see the data coverage in Singapore is very high because we have a lot of active mappers in Singapore. So this is the workflow of our approach. We set up our training data sets. We spend, these training data sets are for deep learning. So we spend 8 months to collect more than 40,000 facade objects, such as windows and doors for the deep learning. And then we use the ULO V3 and darknet for the prediction. And after the prediction, we have the process to correct the geometries and the topologies of the facade object. Then we can reconstruct them in 3D. So this is the experimental results for the object detection, the facade element detection in the city of Paris. So we actually achieve very accurate results. So we apply this method for one building, one restaurant in Singapore, in Chinatown. So as you can see, the object detection is very accurate and the 3D reconstruction is very easy after that. And we collect all the buildings on social media platform for this building, and we extract the SIFT features for the images, and we matching the features to find out which part of the image are mostly overlapped with each other, and to indicate which part of the building facade are mostly photographed. This indicates how people observe the building. As you can see on the 3D model, 2 regions in the facade are mostly photographed. On the 2D perspective of view, we can also see how people are moving around while taking images. So we analyze the data in the Pagoda Street in Singapore. So you can see the blue area, there are photos, and we even find out how many photos are connected with individual buildings. As you can see from the west, the building footprint are red, which represent there are a lot of photos. And we also find out one temple in the east, which seems very famous and mostly photographed by people. And we also do this for a landmark in Singapore. And as you can see, when we visualize the location on the maps, we can see how people are moving around this temple. And most of people that taken photos from the east part of this temple. Now I come to my conclusion. As you can see, it's possible to reconstruct 3D city models from the crowdsourcing images, and our research shows that it's possible to detect the spatial temporal patterns of criminal activities from social media data. So what we can do more in the future is that we can derive the urban emotions, which means that we can know how people are feeling in the area by checking or compare with the 3D infrastructure of the cities. We can find out why people are feeling like that, what are they doing like that. And all these feedbacks can give us a very good solution for the sustainable and smart cities. So this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hongchao. We will then open for questions, and also feel free, if you want to have a direct verbal comment, raise your hand, so then you can post your questions or your discussions directly to the presenters. I think we also have one question left over from the first session, and that might be posted to Kristoffer. Are there any construction research plan for getting ready for rising the sea level? Because, you know, there is a predicted sea level rise, not that extensively for Norway, but at least for Singapore it's quite extensive. So is that incorporated into your plans?
Yeah, they're very important to our plans. Of course, we are planning that all the urban areas should be above the sea level for the future. So we plan all our areas above that as a key to deal with that. So, and as you said, it's not that big for Norway and Bodø. I think it's about 3 meters above sea level, a higher rise, and also have the floods also, of course. But yeah, we don't have that much issues for Bodø, and I think we are managing quite good.
Thank you. I think David is not with us, but maybe Lydia, you know a little bit on how that is handled in Singapore. I know it also, yeah, because we have been involved in it.
Yeah, I think being a very small country state and island state, sea level rise is a very existential issue to us, because we have not wide hinterland to escape to. So the government is putting heavy focus on that, and already we have several stages of coastal adaptation studies underway for modeling or predicting what are the future sea level rise up to a mid-term horizon, long-term horizon for our country. And definitely some numbers from these studies will be fed into some of our development, coastal development planning. And then it will further go down into more detailed modeling and studies. So I don't have the exact numbers with me right now, but definitely this issue is being looked into, and from the mitigation and adaptation angle, there will be coastal protection strategies that would, I mean, of course, the conventional hard way is to raise the entire platform reclamation level, but there are other integrated measures or more flexible monitor as you adapt kind of measure that we are also considering in the interim, or other redundancy measures like changes in policy or land use planning sort of angle. So that definitely is being looked into, but I don't have the full details right now. Yeah.
And I think Per Christer, you have a direct question which just goes to both participants. In fact, I was thinking about the same. So please, yeah, you can raise the question directly.
Yeah, well, first I just want to comment on this sea level rise, and just show you this one, that on Friday the 6th, a week and a half from now, as the very last session for this Science Week, we will explicitly address this sea level rise things, where We will hear from Professor Benjamin Horton at NTNU, which is probably one of the leading authorities in Singapore and maybe in the world, talking about how Singapore is addressing this, and will be then matched with Kristin Richter from the Norwegian Research Institute Norse to take this. So we will have a special session on sea level rise. So all of you interested in that, please join on Friday the 6th. That was the comment to the sea level rise. My second question was more on and just following up on my first question to David Tanner on the privacy and the personal or data integrity and data storage. What we hear from Severin is you can use this data to optimize a society. You can find out from the patterns, the behavior patterns, the living pattern, the preferences and activities on people, on how people behave, how they think, how they act in a society. And then, of course, you can design the physical society according to that. You can optimize where you want to put charging stations, you mentioned, or energy from one side to the other. But there is another side of this coin, and that is you can use this data to manipulate people's behavior. You can influence their preferences. You can make them do shopping decisions. We see that. I mean, Facebook is one of the major influencers. Do you see any data? And of course, if this is benevolent and all the let's call it custodians of the data is doing this for the good of the society, it's all fine. But we can quite easily imagine societies, and there are written numerous books on societies where this data is not used in such a benevolent way. Do you see any danger of being that we are more easily manipulated or easily controlled in a high digital society? Do you see any flip sides on this? Or dangers? And this goes to, I think it goes to, Sarah, it goes to all of you, basically.
I can first address, yeah, I mean, this is a huge concern. And this is, I would personally say, very scary. Because as far as I can tell, you're spot on about that. And I forgot now who said that. I think it was one of the chief data scientists of one of the large global corporations who said that our brightest minds right now are figuring out how to best make people click on ads online, which I would personally say is a huge waste of potential. So in that sense, I'd rather have them work and use their skills on improving people's lives in cities and societies. But there's a huge amount of downside to this. And I don't have the answers, but what I'm thinking is, and what I'm a big fan of personally, is to not detach what we're doing, not detach the technology and the science from the human aspect, because we can't. As I try to make a point, everything is so interconnected by now. The world is so complex and interrelated. We can't continue to pretend that here's technology, here's science, and here are the humans, which are just like the static, like kind of block piece of the puzzle, because they're not. They're super central. So I would say that we have to be more open towards that and invite, for example, the social sciences. We have to understand the psychology of individuals, of groups, of entire cities, because it's so central now. And because on one hand, it harbors very great potential for a truly smart and awesome society. But on the other hand, it's easy to envision a very dystopian and scary society as well if this is used against people. And again, like if you see what the success of Facebook and Google and all these ones, it is fairly easy to manipulate people. Machine learning has gotten really good at pulling people's emotional strings. So this is a very valid concern.
I think maybe some of you remember, at least the older ones. There's a story from the US in the 30s, I think, when they had a radio play on that they imagined an invasion from Mars. And the point was that this was so well done that people panicked because they thought it was for real. And I think they had several car crashes. So it was an old-fashioned way of manipulating via radio. Just imagine what you can do via the media you know how. It's really scary. just imagine that somebody spreads that, hey, your water is contaminated. And you can manipulate data in that way. So obviously, cybersecurity, safety is a really, really important aspect.
Could I try to make one last point? It just came to mind. Maybe one part of the answer is also decentralization instead of centralization. As you made a point now, Arnstein, I mean, human history is full of examples where some central force manipulated people into doing, in some cases, really horrible things. So it's not like this is a new problem. So maybe the new solution is to decentralize power, decentralize control. Maybe that's a way of steering clear of this issue. So that's not like one bad actor that has the power to do something bad for an entire city, but that there's some sort of checks and balances and you have a decentralized network. What exactly it looks like, I don't know, but I think from the principle of going from centralized to decentralized, I feel that could be part of the solution here as well.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in, maybe education plays a part as well. If from young we are educated to be a little bit careful about the downside of social media and the overexposure to internet, and then we will, with that awareness, that could maybe help to mitigate some of the risk of being manipulated.
We have also a question from Marte Mariussen in Multiconsult, directed to Hongchao Fan, which says, thank you for a very good presentation. Is there anywhere we can read more about modeling and analysis that you presented?
Okay, thank you very much. And if you go to my personal website, NTNU, you can find some publications that are related to this presentation, and also for the 3D reconstruction part, and by using deep learning to extract to detect the windows and doors from the images. So we are actually so we are doing this job, and we submitted one paper for the IEEE transaction on geoscience and remote sensing. The paper is actually in the second round of revision. I hope it will be accepted within this year, so that you can read this paper. And for the last part of the some visualization for Singapore City, so we quickly did this in last week, and we don't have a publication for this, but I want to mention that it's possible to do this work, and it's not so hard to do this.
Okay, please feel either to raise your hand for a comment or post your questions directly to I was thinking in the continuation of what Per Christer raised as question. The thing is, like you said, that you can manipulate people in a wrong direction. There's also a possibility, of course, that you can use it to kind of give good guidance to people, where to go to get transport, where to... so far, you have been talking about how do we collect data, how we can monitor, not the other way around. How can we use then this to direct? So it goes as such both to Hongchao and Severin.
I can go first again, if that's okay. Yeah, again, it's a very great question. And again, part of the answer has to be that we include knowledge about how humans behave on an individual level, on a group level, on even larger scales. And Lydia said that maybe through education we can improve the situation, and of course I agree with that. I would like to add, however, that as far, I'm totally not an expert on psychology, but as far as I know, this is from Daniel Kahneman. We have like a fast thinker and a slow thinker. Every human has that. So you have the slow thinker that like sits down kind of and reflects and has a big plan for the future and is logical and analytic. And you have and we have the fast thinker, which is much more emotionally driven and wants to have immediate gratification. And you can't yet, we have to consider both, I feel, because just knowing what's clever and what's smart and what's right is not always enough for people and groups to act accordingly. Everybody knows that smoking's bad, yet people continue doing it. So education, of course, is a big part of it. I mean, I can't really be standing here saying it's not, but I feel, again, we have to also deeper understand the human side of things and integrate it in a holistic whole between technology, science, and this human aspect. And then the possibilities are endless. I mean, then I think this is super exciting.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. And you know what we have done is to derive the human activities and to find out what the majorities are doing. Of course, people always follows what follows the majority. So this gives the opportunity to have the guidance for the society. And I understand this as that we need the concept when we design the smart city or the sustainable city, how we can define a better police to guide people for doing such things. But this is then of aspect that how about if people are not going to, they don't want to be guided, and so it's a difficult question. I don't have answer for this. Yeah.
Okay, Christer, you want to follow up?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what Hongchao said just now is really the core of my concern. It's who sits and decides what is good for us, and is it the majority? I mean, you have the tyranny of democracy, that the majority, and of course using computers you can always derive some statistical probability function, and that should be so. Everybody should be a vegetarian. They should go skiing. They should shop in organic shops and stuff like that. If I don't want to do that, would I not really fit into this optimized society, or will I have to be tailored into this? So I'm asking, for example, Kristoffer, when you're designing this, I mean, ideally, and to Lydia as well, these ideally societies, what about the outliers? Do we need to worry about them? Do we need to does everybody have to be conform? And that's one thing. And the other thing is, who's defining these objective functions? Who's sitting in the top? Is it a political decision? Is it an AI that is doing that because it derives that it, for example, smoking and eating red meat is bad for us? What happened to our personal freedom and integrity? Yeah, sorry, I'm being I'm being the devil's advocate here, and maybe I shouldn't. But I think these are questions we should think about. So Kristoffer, you're part of the municipality of Bodø. Will you be the guy that tells me how to live in Bodø?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I don't know what to answer to that, because it's in many cases the society decides what's the right thing to do and the right thing to be like. So, but I think the key here is, and that's also why we are asking our inhabitants and really are having more and more activities and solutions that we can interact with the inhabitants, because we believe that technology is maybe this is just a tool for us to get to a smarter or better society, but it's the inhabitants that should be a part to develop it. So we're working really strongly on how we can integrate the inhabitants and also reach those parts of inhabitants that usually don't go to meetings or are very out there on the internet and get their information. You have to actually get to where people are. So we try to go to schools, we try to go to to where people are in this room or in the cities, and yeah, to just get their opinion on things. So I think it's important to ask actually what people want.
Severin, I think you also would like to comment.
Yeah, this is again super interesting. And then again, I'm thinking we probably have to basically do what Kristoffer says, and keep in mind there can be a difference between what people say they want and what they really want. And again, who decides is a thorny issue. But I wonder if a relatively new field of science called complex system science has some answers here, because what they are basically, or let's put it this way, again, like a city is way too complex to be understood by one person, or to be understood by a group of people. It just is. So I'm thinking we can again try to take a decentralized approach and kind of outsource our intelligence and decision making, that we think about it like crowd intelligence of maybe all of the citizens taking decisions. Again, how to do that, I'm not sure. There are some ideas, technological and otherwise. It's a big one. And from complex system science, we know that you have to, if you have a problem, an issue, or you have a system which you'd like to understand and then optimally control, let's say, you want to have, the solution has to have a complexity that at least is as big as the complexity of the problem on different scales. If you have problems on like a neighborhood scale, you have to match that sort of level of complexity in your solution as well on the neighborhood scale, on the district scale, on the city scale. So I think Kristoffer is onto something. We have to go out and simply talk to people and learn more. And there's different technological solutions that can help us with getting that data as well.
Kelly?
Yeah, I also wanted, thinking about maybe mobility choices, I think it's also important to remember that there isn't just one correct choice, and a person's choice might change over time. So maybe right now I can ride my bike or ride my bus to work, but then there might be a period where I have a small child. So now there's reasons why I want to drive a car. So maybe the ideal kind of right choice is that no one should be driving their cars, but that isn't realistic to say that nobody will drive a car. We just want to try to reduce the people that are driving cars. So I think we still need to have choices in what the solutions would be, and acknowledge those choices.
Because that was also one of my questions to Kristoffer, because I noticed that you said that when you started with the kind of inviting people to come and put their questions, what do they want to have. What we know from experience is that there is a certain kind of type of people which will then go there. And maybe you will not reach what, God forbid, Donald Trump said was the silent majority. And I noticed, I've just been visiting my mother-in-law. She's 87 years old, living in Mo i Rana. She will never be using her smartphone. She doesn't have a smartphone. She has a fixed phone. How did you reach these people? Because they are also part of what you are trying to serve. So how do you cope with that when you plan like the new district in Bodø?
Yeah, that's also very interesting. How to reach people that don't attend to different meetings and are on social media, sort of that. Yeah, I think it's very hard to really reach out to all parts of the inhabitants you have. But as I mentioned, you have to find out where they are. So that's why I said that I think the most important group, like myself, having small children, we use the city very much actually, because we go to our jobs, we have activities outside, and we also want to visit people, and the kids are going to kindergarten and schools and different stuff. So So by reaching those, for instance, we attended different meetings between those parents in the kindergartens and schools to kind of hijack their meetings and ask them some questions. But also the elderly people are especially in Bodø, they're engaged in different society, and so we have to also reach out to those societies. But it's very hard actually to reach out to everyone, and we are working with this every day actually, to how we can reach them all. So yeah.
Are there any? Per Christian, you have raised your hand, I think. I think you have muted your microphone, Per.
Yeah, I was saying that I'm sitting here thinking how cities historically have evolved without AI and planning and data optimization or central planners. It's organic, you know. It's just there. Very many of them has never been planned as such. I mean, someone tried, and in modern times they made these artificial cities like Naipido and Brasilia and other places, and sometimes it succeeds, sometimes in many cases it doesn't. People don't want to live there because it's too much organized. It's made for a group of people that is the ideal inhabitant for that kind of construction, you know. And if you're lucky, you hit maybe 10% of the bell curve, and the rest they don't bother going there. You can try to upgrade a city area and hope that people will move there. But there are other things that maybe the central planners think is the driving force for people to move there. Grünerløkka in Oslo is a good example. You know, who would think that would be the most hot area in Oslo some 15, 20 years ago, etc. So I'm thinking that if you do central planning, on one side, of course, you can put in all the things that you believe is for the people, with electrical chargers and central heating and access to this and that and transport and all the choices. But in the end of the day, it is the people that live there that will move in there. So to what extent can we give flexibility for people to tailor their own community or their own society? So you give them a plot of land and they can build whatever they want on that piece of land. You know, even if it's a cabin with no water and electricity, it could still be a part of this, to put it to extreme. Is that part of the thinking here, or do we all believe that we know how the best citizens should be? Kristoffer. Sorry for picking on you, but I could ask Lydia the same question.
Yeah, I think that's some interesting thoughts. We have some examples actually in Norway where they are developing a new urban area, and they actually invite potential new inhabitants in that area to participate in the development of that project, so they can have a say of how the apartment should be like, and the meeting place and the shared space inside those urban areas. So I think that's quite interesting. So you need to kind of create a framework where we can work inside, so people can make some choices for themselves, I think.
So how many degrees of freedom does inhabitants in Punggol Digital District will have, Lydia, you think, to tailor their own apartments or their own neighborhood?
I'm afraid for Punggol Digital District, I am not very sure of what degrees of freedom. But in general, in Singapore, we are moving towards very much stakeholder engagement. So when the government has any rejuvenation plans, right, we can see a distinct steering of the direction towards having public forums to solicit and to crowdsource our opinions on the matter. And when they build certain recreational infrastructure, there are avenues for which we can express our opinions. So I think they are coming to the realization that I think this is very linked to Hongchao's presentation just now, also linking urban emotions to the type of infrastructure. I think it will be very enlightening to establish and understand the correlation between these two variables.
I think Marte Mariussen, Multiconsult, have raised your hand for a comment, or?
Yes, hello. Yeah, I just had a quick comment because we are talking about this as if it's only the needs of the inhabitants in an area that matters. And just, we have to remember that this isn't just about the inhabitants, this is also about saving the climate. Some enormous challenges that they didn't have back in the 70s when they were planning cities, when they were planning Brasilia and trying to do what they thought was the best for the inhabitants. We have a much bigger problem of that now that maybe requires some more planning. Maybe it wasn't right back then with the reasoning that they had then, but it may still be right now. So yeah, just a quick comment there.
I think it's a good comment. There was a famous Henrik Ibsen. He said that the majority is always wrong. It might be. But I was thinking, Lydia, because I've noticed, I've been to Singapore since 1994. And Singapore over these years has changed dramatically. I started going there frequently since 2002, and it has even changed quite dramatically since 2002. One of the things I noticed when I came down in 2002 that it was not possible to bike in Singapore, more or less impossible, because everything was planned to facilitate for cars. They started building out the metro, but biking was impossible. I'm very fond of biking. Then I've noticed that since 5-6 years ago, it has gradually been improving the possibility for biking. So my question, is that driven because there was a demand between people, or was it driven because you politically decided that you wanted to open up? I noticed, for example, this corridor where you go along you have opened a creek, which has become a fantastic place for biking, and somebody has had to take that decision.
Yeah. Thanks, Arnstein, for your observations. Good to see through Singapore's transformation through your lens. I think pertaining to your question is both ways. I think the ground citizens has demonstrated a strong growing hobby of cycling. It is a trend and it's trending right now. You see more cyclists on the road, and from the top on the politician side, many of their learning experiences to Europe, site investigations or visits to Europe, learning from our international partners has made us realize that there are greener modes of transport that is both healthier and better for the climate. So I think on both ways, they are coming to the great realization that it may be worth our while to invest on infrastructure that's friendly for cycling. And I think going forward, we may move to the stage where we have dedicated lanes for cycling to reduce the danger of those jostling for space on the public lanes where the cars are traveling as well, which it is for the moment.
Marte, I think you have raised for comment again, right? Marte, or have you just
sorry, no, I just didn't. No, sorry, I just didn't lower my hand. I will do it.
Okay. And then equally to Kristoffer, as I said, I've been living in Bodø for 3.5 years, and I've been biking in rain, westerly wind when it's 0 degrees, much worse than when it's -10, in fact. And you said that, okay, you want to increase the number of people walking and biking, but there are some natural framework that is very difficult to do. Similar to Singapore, it's extremely hot. When you have been biking for 30 minutes, either you have to have a beer or you have to go to bed. So how do you cope with it?
Yeah, as I mentioned in my presentation, it's of course we have some issues to make it more attractive to take the bike. I bike the whole year, but of course the weather could be a challenge. But I think it's a part of many things. As you have, first of all, I think you have to have better cycling facilities. That means you have your own pathways and roads for bicyclists, so they feel that they have their own space in the traffic, and maybe also can have the bike network outside and separated from the car system, so it's more attractive and it feels better. Maybe you can have it through the green areas as well. So, but of course, there could be snow and it could be also a lot of wind, as in Bodø, and yes. But we have some strategies that we. For instance, if you have a lot of snow, we mow the snow for the bike lanes before some of the car and the roads systems, so that it will be much easier for it to take the bike rather than the car. So I think it's about doing the little things, and you could also have we have some solutions that we have underground heath under the pathways. So it will always be dry. So that's a thing you can do. And but yeah, a lot of things.
Can I just chip in? Being a citizen of Singapore since well, I've been here 5 years, and it's just the last 1 year that I've started biking because of this shutdown or lockdown. There's two kind of biking basically. One is of course commuting and the necessity you go to your supermarket to shop and stuff like that. And in that case, it is a bit tricky to do because you bike in the very dense trafficked area downtown and other places, and there's not always place to put your bike, etc. But so that's something that can be addressed. The other thing is recreational biking, and that has just exploded in Singapore. If you drive here in the morning, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. There must be thousands of bikers. And I think Singapore is one of the few countries in the world where you can circumnavigate, or you can bike around the entire city before lunch, which I have done a few times. And it's really, really not that. It's 120 kilometers. You can do that quite comfortably. And of course, Arnstein, the beer never tastes better than after such a trip. I can promise you that. So it's doable, and also with the park connectors, it's coming up. And if you do drive outside of the densest cities, it's actually not bad at all. And you know, it's very flat. It never blows. It never rains. There's no slush. So it's a great city to bike in. Actually, it has huge potential.
Yeah. I think if there are no more direct questions, I don't think so. No. Maybe I'll give the word to Lydia to kind of summarize a little bit from the Singaporean side, and I'll try to do the same from the Norwegian side afterwards.
Sure, Arnstein. I will just have a quick word of summary. I think from the presentations from our Norwegian counterpart, it has been a good learning experience that we saw many interesting possibilities. I saw many angles from which Norwegian has Norway side is planning their cities with different elements and angles that maybe we could consider, or we could explore collaboration on. For instance, what to do with the spaces in between buildings. I thought that was quite interesting. Your heavy focus on understanding what the inhabitants want from this community. I think that is worth learning for us as well. And your mobility hubs and micro mobility hubs, I thought that was a very interesting idea. I would be interested to later on discuss with David whether we could go towards that as well. I think Norway and Singapore has different challenges. In your city planning, you had agriculture and different transportation mode to consider, but there are also similarities like sea level rise. So in the next 2 weeks, I'll be inspired to learn more about how further information from Norway for the next 2 weeks. Yeah.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah. From the Norwegian side, I think it's been very interesting. As you said, there are some differences, obviously. In Bodø, they are struggling with snow. In Singapore, it's more that it's plus 35. So there are some differences, but also I have to say that there are some really similarities, and there are things to learn from each other. What I have been very amazed on is the way Singapore, how you do long-term planning. That's for me is really amazing to see, and the ability you have to make a plan and you follow it, really. And the example I gave from that you have been developing the possibilities for biking, I'm quite sure that this is based on political or administrative will. They want to do this, and then they do it. And that for me is very impressive, and it's an example of how you really can use both political will and ability. And of course, we have to overcome some of the obstacles related to data security, the possibility for people that want to manipulate data. But basically, I'm a technology optimist, and what I've heard now is that this is it's more a possibility than a threat, I would say. Given that, I think that we could finalize this session. I'd like to take Kristoffer a lot for arranging it. It was the first test, so to say, but I think that has been very fruitful. What I would like to see, though, is that we will have a continuation of this presentation, but I would very much like to see that we could use the possibility also to create this as a meeting place physically. We could start with visiting Bodø in the nice summer of 2021 when there's midnight sun, and see what they are thinking. And then we go to Singapore in November when Bodø is windy and rainy, has almost no charm, and then you take the best part out of both. So please, Per-Krister, can I give the word to you to kind of summarize from Innovation Norway, and also to say the continuation, because I think it's important also that this is the first one.
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much to Lydia and to Arnstein, and of course also to David. He left us before, but that is, I think, that what you do on the PDD is so inspirational, and we've been working about a year, as you know, Lydia, that to also bring Norwegian companies to this the digital development. Or digital district developments in Singapore. We have a few companies that are actually doing some success on this one as well. I found Arnstein's idea, of course, very, very intriguing. I take that as an open march order to facilitate something physical next year, given that COVID allows us to do that, which I hope. I find the developments at Bodø very interesting to see, but also what Severin and Hongchao talked about their tools, looking at where basically I think the challenges, the tools, the objectives are more or less the same. And what we will hear from later in the other webinars tomorrow and day after tomorrow is that there are regional differences. There's climatic differences. There are demographic differences. There are cultural differences. But when I think it comes to data analytics, data usage, data processing, I think we share a lot of the same problem statements and the opportunities. So it's a good basis to collaborate. And I think that I'm not sure how much it was mentioned about in the Pingal Digital District, but it's called this open digital platform. That is a plug and play thing, or as far as I understand, which is really, really a playground. And at least 3 companies, Norwegian companies, are trying to move into that and use that platform to develop their apps in collaboration with, for example, Singapore Institute of Technology that will move their campus to the PDD. So this is a fantastic good opening of the Science Week. Let me just share with you the program for tomorrow, which is here. Let's see, let's go. Why doesn't it? Here. It's a bit more busy because it's over 3 hours. It will dig further into what we talked about when it comes to data analytics, data usage in a it will be a session led by Professor Annemie Wickmans from NTNU and Professor Clayton Miller from NUS jointly. A little bit the same concept as today, perhaps a bit more presentations. And the thematic focus is, as I said, a bit go even deeper into the areas. And I think also they will draw a bit more, how can I say, global assessments, how these thinkings are from a more global perspective. For example, we have Callum Hanforth from UNDP talking about how UN is thinking about the development of sustainable cities. So this will be tomorrow. I invite, of course, all of you to take part of that. And then for the last session, when it comes to the sustainable urban development, are focusing on the energy aspect of this, zero emission and zero energy buildings, neighborhoods, and districts. So we'll have 2 more days of urban development, sustainable urban development. But I think this was really a true and great opening, and I think the technology actually played pretty well as well. So with that, I think I'd just like to thank all of you, especially to the 2 co-chairs, Lydia and Arnstein, and the speakers. And I hope to see many of you tomorrow. So thank you with that, and we see each other tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bye.